actually is the most dangerous thing in social change, is comfort with incrementalism, because you can feel good about what you're doing, and that's the difference between equality and equity, and I think that's just at the root of a lot of our issues, and hopefully now or later we can talk about that, because I think it's really important for us all to understand the roles we play in that. This thing that we have, this government grant, is great because it's a lot of money from the federal government to grow this program that seems to be working. However, again, getting back to the systems piece and understanding what that means, it's a match, a 2-to-1 matcher. So essentially, we have to raise whatever the federal government gives us, and then our partners need to raise it too. And there are limited number of resources. And as generous as Bostonians are and others are, there tends to, and this gets back to the incrementalism thing, there tends to be an amount that people are going to give philanthropically. And so what we unwittingly find ourselves doing actually is competing with the nonprofit organizations that we're supporting to raise the incremental match dollars. And so that's just one way to look at it. There's a lot, again, I don't mean to be all doom and gloom. There are a lot of good things that are happening, but it's really important that we understand the mechanisms by which these things are happening, because that's where we're going to be able to disrupt and have the biggest impact.
Thank you. I'm going to shift gears a little bit because I've got a lot of questions. I'm wondering how people can use power and influence, and not just dollars, to influence the whole philanthropic sphere. We talked a lot about sort of government philanthropy, foundation philanthropy. There's also individual philanthropy is a big chunk of it, so part of that is maybe I just compete them, but this proximity thing, a lot of the biggest donors actually have never set foot in communities, that a lot of the work takes place in. And I think that, there are more things to influence than just dollars, but at the end of the day, you need to keep your mission going too, right? I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that.
I think I'll kick us off by saying so much of it I do think is relational in terms of building the relationships with the people who have the power and the influence, and really trying to understand what the overlap is in your interests, and that there is a different way to do things. And if you can get someone to say, I really actually care about the outcomes, like I really do care about that, then you've got this huge little crack in the door that you can just bust open. Because if people care about outcomes, there are nonprofits that get to that and there are nonprofits that don't. And there's government programs that get to that and there's government programs that don't. And I think, and I'm just being very candid here, I think honestly playing to people's ego is really helpful in these situations, and saying, kind of boxing them with you strike me as a future thinker. You strike me as somebody who's not particularly satisfied with the status quo. And I think we share that. And so I'm wondering if you'd want to help me think through how we together might use your dollars, your government grant, your corporation, to think about how we could reimagine the 26.2 miles, are we, Robert, of Boston, to do this differently. Because we can give you stats. New Profit can actually give you stats. I'm sure Marie and Jennifer could too. Billions of dollars have gone into, it's 141 agencies that operate with youth in the spine of Mattapan. Billions upon billions of dollars. We're probably serving all the same people. We don't talk to each other. Those kids are probably not doing materially better than they were 2 generations ago, and it's so much more money. So I feel like we just need to paint the picture of dude, you can't possibly be happy with your giving. Are you happy with this? They don't say it quite like that when I'm talking to you. And then some people are just going to be like, you know what, I actually, and I'll say this to you, but they're going to be like, I'm good. And then you just don't spend more time around people like that. And then you're going to find people like, damn, really? Because believe me, we raise money. When we're raising money, we're telling really good feel-good stories, all the anecdotal stuff, but you have to come, as to Vedette's point, armed with your data. And if you just show them the snapshot of the thing that you care about, how much money has gone in, what the actual outcomes are, how much duplication there is, and can really paint a picture of what future possible could be, I really think we could totally change things. I believe that.
So I'm gonna take a little different tack. While I was listening, I do a lot of work in Haiti as well, and the impact of the NGO community on Haiti, where everybody comes in with their plan, and then tell the community, this is the plan and this is how we're operating. For years growing up in Upham's Corner, that's kind of how I felt about government and the private sector. Funders, they all come in with a plan, and all of a sudden, you know, I don't know how I'm living my life, and you're gonna tell me how to. I think that there's a lot to ask, and not everybody have relationships. I mean, I'm lucky. I think Robert is lucky. I can, you know, look around the room and people who've been able to get those relationships, they can actually pick up the phone and make a phone call. But a lot of folks actually don't have that kind of access. So I think there has to be a real conversation around by funders around equity and how do they define it, and then how do they put it into action. And so I don't think that's a conversation that happens in boardrooms, and I think it should happen in boardrooms. And I don't think program folks actually really think about it as much as they ought to. Because if we are asking people to act a certain way, then I think we should be reflecting that behavior, right? So that's one. I think that, and we need to think about that in terms of how we do it. I think the business community, part of their corporate responsibility is implemented through their foundations or corporate grants. And so I do think that as consumers, that's where the influence come in, right? You know, as your role as consumers, I would tell you as voters, that's where your influence come in. So much it's really about how do you think or take your power collectively as community and say, community, GE, you're coming in. I understand you've had this conversation with the mayor. I think it sounds really good, but these are some things that I think are important too. And so where's our voice collectively to say that, because that will influence your government and it will influence that new funder that's coming into this community. So I think if you give up your power, the vacuum is created, someone will take it and move it for you. So I want to say collectively, that is some more way that we can have some impact as well. The other thing I want to encourage is when we talk to people, and I want to say about it from this side of the conversation in terms, funders have to have more conversations with each other. Because that collaboration that we're talking about, I think we need funders, whether it's government or the nonprofit sector, need to really begin, and because you know what, it's a competition, because I want to put out my report and say that we did this. It's like I have a collaboration that I've been building for the past 2 years called Put Mass Kids First. I went back to do this work here in early ed because I truly believe I put, as a legislator, $30 million in for remediation, to do MCAS remediation. I've put, you know, as in being in Ways and Means, tons of money investing in kids after the fact. Put all that money in, whether for after school programs or what have you. I've actually gone and done that lobbying internally with my colleagues to do that. I think we need to continue to do, I'm not saying don't do, but I think we have to start planning too. And with the group that's coming, let's do it right, let's get it right. So we're not now talking about a new group, about how we're gonna remediate and how we're gonna stop, rehabilitate. Because that's what we're putting our money on as a society, remediate and rehabilitation as it relates to people of Black and brown. And by the way, Black and brown are the mind, the canary in the mine, because now it's showing up in suburban communities. You need to really think about that. Our young people are hurting themselves because all of them. And so we need to start earlier. That's why I decided to sort of go in there and invest the time earlier. But the people that I'm talking to don't talk the same language, even though they're trying to get the same thing done, right? You try to bring that segment, they're all different, they all want the same thing, but they're all chasing that same dollar. So just as we encourage collaboration, I think we have to be clear what we're talking about and bring people around the table so that we're all operating off the same set of facts. Because everybody's using facts differently. Evidence is great, data is great, but you use it as you desire. And so I think one thing is that, getting the facts right, getting the data right, so at least there's a point of data that we all agree on, and then collectively going after. That's what we're doing with that coalition. Then we have to understand that people have their own self-interest. Boston Foundation is gonna have its own interest, New Profit's gonna have its own interest. But there are places that they intersect. Where is that place? And how can we go at it together? And that's what I ask coalitions to do. I know you're gonna go up there and shill for your own thing. But when you get up there though, can this item pass your lips? Because if you're all saying the same thing, then that's the overarching message that's gonna get communicated. So we need to do that in the provider side as well as the funder side. And the other thing is be clear about what you're asking people to do. So where you've intersected, you've now come to agree what the facts say, you all agree that there should be some activity. What is that activity? And then respect people enough to go at it in their own way. So that we're asking, I think Jen picked on that, because we're saying, okay, you've got the skill set, now go at it and make it happen. So when you bring me back the report, I'm not asking you how you did it. You know, I have 3 kids, I got to it differently for each of them. Oh my God, I wish it came with one of those books that said, this is what you do. But they don't. And I needed to be adaptable enough to address their needs. And God, the youngest one is in his 20s. But I had to be that adaptable. Now, if someone asked me, okay, what are your metrics, and this is it for the first one through the last one, I'd say you're crazy because it was all different. And I think we have to think some of that way and giving people the freedom to do what needs to be done. And I say that on the funder side too. So that we're looking at the outcome. So I think as we're talking and asking people to do things, on this side we need to check ourselves too and bring together. So I think that what's changing, and I'll close with it, what's changing around the private side, I think there's more of that happening. I think there's more conversations of that nature happening, and I think that bodes well. You know, we used to say, okay, we'll send all our money to a particular organization and they'll take care of it. But I think people are saying, no, I'm part of this community too. So I see more people giving their money, but giving of themselves. I think that's actually a good thing, because that means they're actually engaging with the people that they're investing the money in, and they're beginning to understand it. They're bringing their children. And that's the kind of world we really want to see, because the children need to understand what's happening. The children of those who are privileged need to understand what's happening with kids who are not as privileged as they are. That's what I think is great with this new sector that's investing, because it's not here's a check, see you later. It's we're all in this together, how do we get it done? And I think if you see what's happening with the larger organizations that used to receive money, they're seeing a decline. They're seeing a decline. And because now people are saying, I'm in this. And think about and I think it goes back to who we are as society. When I was a kid growing up in Boston, if I looked around like my mom's kitchen table, we all kind of look alike. When my kids were growing up around my kitchen table, there was everybody. And I think that's the difference of the people who are growing up, who are giving today. They grew up in a different world than we did, and so their orientation's a little bit different, and we must be open to that.
I would say yes to everything Marie just said. Oh my God, that was incredible, because you encapsulated so much of so many of the challenges and so much of the potential. And the only thing that I would add is this is a new day, right? We grew up in a different world than our parents grew up in, and that means that the future is unknown, right? So it's incumbent on all of us to work together to figure that out and to hold each other accountable for what we're saying now are the outcomes we want to see.
Awesome.